Good morning. Good morning. Oh, goodness. Welcome to the Sunday morning worship service of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church in Naperville, Illinois. I am Katie Hay, a member of your Board of Trustees. We are glad you are here, and whether you are present in the sanctuary this morning or watching remotely, it is good to be together. We welcome you to our church and invite you to get us to know us better during and after the service. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another on our spiritual and religious journeys while holding ourselves in covenant through our shared 7 principles. The mission of DuPage UU Church is to gather as an inclusive community, to grow in character, mind, and spirit, and to transform the world toward fairness, love, and compassion. Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. We have one announcement this morning. The Committee on Shared Ministry, known as COSM, invites you to attend the second of 3 sessions to hear about the revised Covenant of Right Relations. The Covenant of Right Relations is our shared agreement on how we communicate and behave with each other. We'll review the old version and the newer, shorter version. The second session will be on February 25th during the Adult Religious Education Hour. We look forward to your feedback. Look for more information and a link to the updated covenant in upcoming newsletters and weekly updates. We will vote to adopt the new Covenant of Right Relations at the annual meeting of the church. Now, if you are online, I invite you to greet each other through the chat, and if you are present here, I invite you to turn to someone you did not come with and greet them with a wave and a good morning greeting.
For every person, there comes a time when they cease to be passive recipients of the traditions that their parents and teachers seek to hand on to them. When they become active participants themselves in the commitment to discovering the meaning of their heritage. Each year, I invite students to claim their traditions of Unitarian Universalism for themselves by becoming chalice lighters. These young people spend time with their parents and with each other, thinking about the meaning of the flaming chalice and about the purposes and principles of Unitarian Universalist Association. This morning, we recognize Elise Trocchi as we invite her into a more active role in the worship life of our congregation. Elise will be joining a group of her peers that will help open the service each morning by lighting the chalice for us. Elise is in 5th grade at Ranch View Elementary School in Naperville. Her hobbies include ballet, art, rollerblading, and singing. And her favorite principle of the 7 is the 6th principle, which she will say for us this morning.
I light this chalice today for our 6th Unitarian Universalist principle. We believe in the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you, Elise.
Welcome to this place of love, of communal flourishing. We enter this worship space to open our hearts, to expand our minds, and to see the sacred within each other. Come, let us worship together.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing together hymn number 134, Our World is One World. The words will be projected on the wall.
Please join me in reciting our covenant. We come together to affirm our relationship with one another our shared commitment to our Unitarian Universalist principles and to our DuPage UU church community. We recognize our agency and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous in relationship with each other so that we might transform ourselves and the world.
Our vision of beloved community is rooted in the relationships that we have with each other, our world, and creation. Each week, we offer the opportunity to share our joys and sorrows with one another. Today, our flowers were given by Lindy Spreetsma in honor of friends far and family but far away. And I have one concern, sorrow, from Sheila Cook, asking us to please remember the bravery of Alexei Navalny. In the midst of conflict, indeed, we must remember the bravery of those who stand up to tyranny. Whether our joys or concerns are shared here aloud or are held in your hearts, this community cares for one another. Please know that we are here for you, and please reach out if you need support on life's journey. Please join me in a meditative prayer. The words today are from Ted Loder. Thank you for all I forget are gifts, not rights. Forgive me for all the grievances I remember too well. Save me from the self-pity of self-seeking, the fat-heartedness which is true poverty. Guide me if I'm willing, drive me if I'm not, into the hard ways of sacrifice which are just and loving. Make me wide-eyed for beauty and for my neighbor's need and goodness, wide-willed for peacemaking and for the confronting of power with the call to compassion, wide-hearted for love and for the unloved, who are the hardest to touch and need it the most. Dull the envy in me, which criticizes and complains life into 1,000 ugly bits. Keep me honest and tender enough to heal, tough enough to be healed of my hypocrisies. Match my appetite for privilege with the stomach for commitment. Teach me the great cost of paying attention, that naked to the dazzle of your back as you pass, I may know I am always on holy ground. Breathe into me the restlessness and courage to make something new, something saving, and something true, that I may understand what it is to rejoice.
It is time to gather. I have a story this morning about a problem and figuring out what to do with a problem. The story was written by Kobe Yamada. I don't know how it happened, but one day I had a problem. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it. I really didn't like having a problem, but it was there. Why is it here? What does it want? What do you do with a problem, I thought. I wanted to make it go away. I shooed it. I scowled at it. I tried ignoring it, but nothing worked. I started to worry about my problem. What if it swallows me up? What if my problem sneaks up and gets me? What if it takes all of my things? I worried a lot. I worried about what would happen. I worried about what could happen. I worried about this and I worried about that. And the more I worried, the bigger my problem became. I wished it would disappear. I tried everything I could to hide from it. I even found ways to disguise myself. But it still found me. And the more I avoided my problem, the more I saw it everywhere. I thought about it all the time. I didn't feel good at all. I couldn't take it anymore. This has to stop, I declared. Maybe I was making my problem bigger and scarier than it actually was. After all, my problem hadn't really swallowed me up or attacked me. I realized that I had to face it. So even though I didn't want to, even though I was really afraid, I got ready and I tackled my problem. And when I got face to face with it, I discovered something. My problem wasn't what I thought it was. I discovered it had something beautiful inside. My problem held an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to learn and to grow, to be brave, to do something. It showed me that it was important to look closely because some opportunities only come once. So now, I see problems differently. I'm not afraid of them anymore because I know their secret. Every problem has an opportunity for something good. You just have to look for it. Let's sing to the children.
Giving of our treasure is how we reciprocate the many gifts we are given by this community. Your contribution supports the programs and operations of DuPage UU Church. Giving is also how we live our values in the world. Each month, we share our offerings with an organization nominated by the congregation and selected by the special offering team. In February, the special collection will benefit the Tom Galloway Scholarship Fund at College of DuPage. Tom Galloway and his wife Bobby were longtime members of DUUC, and Tom was president of the congregation in the 1990s. Tom established a scholarship program to support African American students at the College of DuPage. The DUUC Special Collection pays about a third of the annual tuition for a scholarship recipient and can also be used to obtain access to computers, purchase textbooks, or help with living expenses. DUUC has been supporting this cause for more than 20 years. The morning's offering to support the work of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church and of the Tom Galloway Scholarship Fund is given and received in a spirit of generosity and gratitude.
There won't be a reading this morning. Instead, please rise as in body or in spirit and join in singing together hymn number 1029 from the Teal hymnal, Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear.
For the past several months, I've been reflecting on how so many things that we are experiencing in this political and social moment is that of oversimplified thinking. It's the inability of people to live or think in nuance, to see the shades of gray between the black and white, to look at history, to dig deeper than the surface, and to blatantly call things right or wrong without realizing that the moral high ground might be a bit more ambiguous. I've shared with you all this kind of thinking through the pulpit in the last few weeks, and with some of you in conversations. I get it that the moment we're in is complicated, and there are so many things bombarding us from every angle, it takes time and energy to get into that complexity. If you recall my sermon on parenting in January on the 21st, you'll know that this is a particularly difficult moment to live in, to the layers of nuance and complexity. Today, though, I'm asking you to stick with me as we dive into some complexity. In fact, today I am hoping that you might be willing to make a commitment to sink into complexity more often, to live into the complexity of what it means to be human. I'm asking this of you today because I want us to understand that human dignity and worth is not a simple formula for treating people well. If it was, we would have our prison system figured out right now. I'm asking this of you because living as a Unitarian Universalist means embracing the very complex theologies of our 7 principles that we must grapple with each day if we are truly going to reach beloved community. But I'm also asking you to embrace the nuanced complexity of life because this is the first lesson of liberation. Nothing is as simple as it looks on the surface. The patterns and complexities to how we create and live into structures that oppress some people and not others. It is as simple as power corrupts, but it's far more complex than that as well. Complexity means living into multiple truths. Complexity means seeing our own lens to cultivate self-awareness, and then seeing the historical, political, economic, and power dynamics that impose restrictions so that liberation becomes impossible to achieve for some. So, now that we know that lesson 1 of liberation is embracing complexity, let's think about some other lessons of liberation. We often use the words freedom and liberty as if they're interchangeable, synonyms. They're not, though. Freedom is the power to act, speak, or think without hindrance. Liberation is the act of actually being set free. Liberation is how we are granted freedom. Now, if we wish to be philosophical about this, we can speak about how we can never truly be free. Unless we believe in complete anarchy, freedom comes with responsibility. We know this because our seventh Unitarian Universalist principle, which asks us to live into the interdependent reality that all life is a part of, is very real and present for us. Now, sometimes that responsibility is held by a system, legal or governmental, and sometimes it's limited by society. For instance, we can say something crass without legal penalty, but we're responsible for that crass statement societally. We need look no further than our past president for examples of this. When the legal, governmental, and societal limitations are in place to enforce the responsibility in ways that are unjust, however, then we need liberation from those systems to ensure our freedom. This is what the Civil Rights Act was intended to do. The inability of Black citizens to vote was a denial of freedom enforced by an institution. To ensure the freedom to vote, the restrictions placed upon Black people needed liberation. Now, even here, one might argue that we cannot be free, for we can always vote for a person that may wish to restrict us. But that's a discussion for another time, except to say that this is exactly how white supremacy works. People with privilege restrict their own freedom, need their own liberation from systems that hamper their full humanity as well. Systems that subject us to consumerism, to stereotyping, and other false ideologies of idealism and power. So when I think about liberation, I'm thinking about the systems of power that hold us back from truly being free. And to understand this better, we need so this is the second lesson of liberation, is that we have to know the difference between freedom and liberation, because knowing that difference means that we can see the system. Knowing the difference means that we see that system, not simply the limitations of individual people. That is, we know a person of color has the freedom to drive down any road in America, but we also know that a person of color is not liberated from the system when in a white, wealthy neighborhood, someone calls the police on them. Liberation is seeing the system, formal or informal, that limits freedom. So if liberation is understanding the systematic limitations of freedom, we need to examine the systems. And understanding systems of oppression leads us to the third and the fourth lessons of liberation. The third is that of power. Systems that limit freedom are always, and I really here mean always, systems that give power to the select few. Historically, power has included wealth, it has been male, and it has been white. So I want to think of a lesser-known example, but a powerful one of power and how it shows up in the world. The concept of Orientalism was a term created by Edward Said, a Palestinian-American academic and political activist. Said wrote in his book, Orientalism, of the ways that discourse and narratives, that is language, by the West, meaning the colonial powers that be, have vilified and demonized those who are not in power. He, of course, was speaking of the narrative of Middle Eastern culture and religions, but the concept is much broader than that. But if we look at the way that Middle Eastern culture and religions have been vilified, We understand what it means when we say the exotic East, or the demon Moors who are racialized Black, the oppression of women. All of these language pieces contribute to power that contributes to the justification of the use of power over and against those who have no power. Look at the narratives at the war, around the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Look at the critique that white feminists have against Muslim women wearing head coverings. This is power through language that teaches us we must always look for power, because that language justifies the misuse of money and military might against a people. It is not simply about who is in control, but what language is being used and who has the money and where it's coming from. Power is complex and layered. The fourth lesson of liberation tells us that we must acknowledge trauma. Limitations of freedom through systems of oppression cause trauma, and that trauma is almost always generational trauma, because limiting freedom is never limited to a single generation. Even when freedom is obtained through liberation, the effects of trauma remain and are passed down from generation to generation. And here's where we have to dive back into complexity again. Because trauma, when it is unhealed, can create its own kind of prison, not only for the person who experienced trauma, but also for the people around that person. Sarah Schulman, a Jewish queer author, writes about this phenomena in her book, Conflict is Not Abuse. She writes, quote, that at many levels of human interaction, there is the opportunity to conflate discomfort with threat, to mistake internal anxiety for exterior danger, and to turn in turn to escalate rather than resolve. For those of us with trauma in our background, being uncomfortable is particularly hard to distinguish from hurt and harm. So Schulman continues, just as unresolved, formerly subordinate or traumatized individuals can collude with or identify with bullies, so can unresolved, formerly subordinate or traumatized groups of people identify with the supremacy of the state. In both cases, the lack of recognition that the past is not the present leads to the newly acquired power to punish rather than to the self-transformation necessary to resolve conflict and produce justice. It is the old adage, hurt people hurt people. When we speak of healed trauma, it's to say that one sees, is aware of, and knows when trauma has a place in the room so that it does not control the situation, but rather becomes an opportunity for trauma to end its narrative, no longer holding power over others. Liberation always understands that trauma is present, acknowledges it, and works to end the cycle of violence. Liberation means creating a system to heal trauma so that it no longer has power over us. And healing trauma must always be done in relationship, as trauma never happens outside of a relationship. So, the lessons of liberation are thinking in complexity, understanding the systems that hold back liberation from certain peoples, looking for power, especially hidden power, and understanding trauma. The lessons of liberation teach us that the restrictions of freedom is not a straightforward black and white scenario. To embark on the process of liberation means tackling complexity, embracing a level of radical curiosity that allows us to reveal the many levels of power dynamics, and finally, acknowledging trauma and helping it to heal. So when we look at a situation like what is happening in Israel and Palestine, we need to first recognize complexity. Then we need to recognize the system of power, modeled after the European white colonizing powers. Then we need to employ the generational trauma that all have experienced and the ways that it takes part in decision-making. When we can see all these layers and lessons, we can name the parts of the system that are keeping liberation from happening. Naming things like, Hamas has killed innocent lives through terror. Israel has used excessive force not simply to defend itself, but to brutally attack innocent lives. The truth is, all of the people making decisions have abused their power and are influenced by money and economics over any sort of idealistic principle of righteousness. This includes powers outside of Israel and Palestine as well. The only people in this situation with a moral high ground are the innocent lives that are in pain, terrorized, or dead. Narratives of both Islamophobia and anti-Semitism are prolific and feed into the political powers surrounding the conflict. Generational trauma is present for everyone. Most of it's unhealed, and some of it is being leveraged for power by those in power. And finally, peace cannot be accomplished while violence continues and lives are threatened. Liberation from systems that hinder freedom requires much from us as Unitarian Universalists because they call us to live into the complexity of our faith tradition. We are a pluralistic faith, which means we embrace the many understandings of meaning-making in the world. To be pluralistic means that we have to live into the lessons of liberation if we are truly going to create a beloved community here or anywhere else. If we can learn these lessons, live by them here, we can bring them to others, growing our impact for liberation in the world. May it be so.
Please rise once more in body or in spirit and join in hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Let us go forth today, living in complexity, seeking to reveal abusive power, and working to heal trauma so we might transform the world into beloved community.
Please, please join me in reading the chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish the light of this chalice, but not the light in our hearts. Until we meet again, may the warmth of our community carry you.